Welcome. Today we're going to dive into a really powerful piece from Nelson Mandela's autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. Think of this as a guided reading. We're going to break it all down together, just like an English class, to really get to the heart of what he's saying.
So, here's our plan. We'll start by setting the scene in South Africa to understand the history. Then we'll look at all the symbolism from the inauguration ceremony. After that, we'll dig into Mandela's actual speech, explore his own personal journey with the idea of freedom, and finally, wrap up with his incredible lessons on courage.
Okay, first up. Before we can even begin to understand the victory, we have to understand the battle that came before it. So let's set the scene. At the center of this whole story is one word: apartheid. And this wasn't just, prejudice. This was a brutal government-enforced system in South Africa that legally separated people by race for decades. Just imagine, the law told you where you could live, the job you could have, even who you could marry, all based on the color of your skin. This timeline really puts that phrase, long walk to freedom, into perspective, doesn't it? The system was put in place way back in the early 1900s. Mandela himself spent almost 30 years in prison for fighting against it. So when we get to May 10th, 1994, this isn't just another election day. It's the climax of a 100-year struggle for justice. All right, on to Section 2. When Mandela describes his inauguration day, he doesn't just give us a list of events. He uses this incredibly rich, symbolic language to paint a picture for us, really focusing on the huge contrast between South Africa's past and its future. I mean, just look at the words he chooses here. He sets the scene at the Union Buildings in Pretoria, but he immediately reminds us of its history. He calls it the seat of white supremacy, the very center of power for the old oppressive government. This contrast just perfectly captures the complete change. And that phrase, rainbow gathering, that's some beautiful imagery. It creates this picture of people from all races, all nations, all coming together in a place that used to represent their division. It's a powerful symbol of hope. And the symbolism didn't stop there. It was even in the music. On that day, two different national anthems were sung. One was the anthem of the anti-apartheid movement, and the other was the old anthem of the White Republic. By singing both of them together, they were basically making a promise that these two very different pasts could come together to build one united future. Now for Section 3. Let's really zoom in on the words Mandela spoke that day. Every single line was chosen so carefully, and it's just packed with meaning. Right from the start, he frames this as something much bigger than just politics. He calls it newborn liberty. That's a metaphor, and it's a great one. Think about a newborn baby. It's precious, it's full of potential, but it's also incredibly fragile. It needs to be cared for and protected to grow. That's exactly what he's saying about South Africa's new freedom. Here's the key phrase, political emancipation. Now, emancipation is just a big word for being set free from rules or laws that hold you back. So when he says this, he's declaring that the specific oppressive laws of apartheid were finally gone. Black South Africans were finally free to vote, to help govern, to be equal citizens. But, and this is so important, Mandela makes it clear that this is just step one. He immediately makes a pledge for the future. He's saying, look, you're not truly free if you're still trapped by poverty or suffering or any kind of discrimination. The political win was just the starting line for the real work ahead. So in Section 4, Mandela shifts gears. He moves away from the public ceremony and gets really personal. He tells us how his own idea of what freedom is actually changed throughout his life, and it's a journey we can all learn from. You can see this really fascinating evolution here. When he was a little boy, freedom was simple, right? Running around, swimming, easy stuff. Then, as a student, it became about these small, personal freedoms, what he calls transitory, like staying out late. But then came the huge shift, when his own desire for freedom grew into this greater hunger for the freedom of his entire community. And this was the light bulb moment. He realized, wait a minute, my freedom isn't being limited because of who I am as an individual, it's being limited because of my race. And that was an experience shared by millions. That realization is what turned his personal fight into a fight for everyone. All right, in our final section, we're going to look at the lessons Mandela learned through all this hardship. And these aren't just about politics, they're really deep insights into what it means to be human, to be courageous. This is such an important idea to get. Mandela is teaching us that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's not some kind of superpower. No,
He defines it as something much more human, something that's possible for all of us. This really breaks it down, doesn't it? We all tend to think that brave people just don't feel fear, but Mandela says no way. The truly brave person is the one who feels that fear, but acts anyway. Courage is beating your fear, not living without it.
And maybe the most amazing thing is that after everything he went through, he still believed this. He said that even in the worst days in prison, just seeing a tiny glimmer of humanity in a prison guard was enough to remind him of this truth. He believed human goodness is like a flame inside us. You can try to hide it, you can cover it up, but you can never, ever put it out. So after looking at the history, the symbols, his personal journey, let's circle all the way back to his speech. When he talks about a glorious human achievement, what is he actually talking about?
Well, it was really two things, and it was a victory for everybody on Earth. First, it was ending apartheid, what he calls an extraordinary human disaster. And second, it was building something new, a society where justice, peace, and human dignity were the foundation. That's a win for all of humanity. And that leaves us with one last, huge question. A question that Nelson Mandela's whole life pushes us to ask ourselves. What does it really mean to be free? Is it just about not having chains on you? Or, as Mandela learned, is true freedom something much bigger? A responsibility to help make sure everyone else is free too. Free from poverty, from suffering, from discrimination. That's the challenge he leaves us with.